The once promising political career of Mayor Tiffany Henyard took a disastrous and devastating turn as the historic election of Dalton, Illinois' first black female mayor was soon overshadowed by scandal, financial mismanagement, and allegations of corruption. Initially celebrated as a groundbreaking moment for the town, symbolizing progress and the breaking down of racial barriers in local politics, Henyard was seen as a beacon of hope for Dalton, a community grappling with economic challenges and a lack of political representation. However, what should have been a promising new era for the town quickly unraveled. Henyard found herself at the center of a scandal involving embezzlement of taxpayer funds and the misuse of public resources for personal indulgence. Among the most shocking accusations was her $43,000 Amazon shopping spree in one day, which left residents stunned and disillusioned. This wasn't an isolated incident but part of a troubling pattern of lavish personal spending, including first-class flights, five-star hotel stays, and extravagant purchases. One particularly shocking expenditure was her $110,000 stay at the prestigious Four Seasons Hotel in Atlanta, a luxury stay at odds with the financial struggles of the town she was supposed to serve. These revelations cast a dark shadow over Henyard's leadership as the public realized that while she was living in luxury, Dalton was sinking further into debt. The town's financial stability deteriorated under her administration, with projects meant to revitalize the community stalled or abandoned. Promises to improve infrastructure, services, and public programs went unfulfilled, and instead of progress, Dalton saw its fiscal health decline. The trust that residents had placed in Henyard quickly eroded, as it became clear that her actions represented not just a betrayal of public trust but a deep violation of the principles of accountability and service. Once aligned with Henyard's vision, local government officials now scrambled to repair the damage caused by her alleged financial misconduct. But the damage was done. Dalton, once hopeful for change, was now left facing an uncertain future, with residents increasingly disillusioned and questioning whether the promised revitalization had ever been more than a mirage. The allegations against Henyard were especially damaging because they highlighted the stark contrast between her extravagant lifestyle and the harsh realities faced by Dalton's residents. While she reportedly enjoyed luxury accommodations and lavish purchases, the town's infrastructure remained in disrepair, services underfunded, and critical projects stagnated. The financial instability she created left Dalton in a precarious position with mounting debt and insufficient resources to address urgent issues. The sense of betrayal was compounded by the perception that Henyard, rather than using her position to uplift the community, had used it for personal gain. Her actions fractured the community, creating a deep divide between the people and their elected officials. What was once seen as a new chapter of change now left Dalton in a state of disillusionment and uncertainty. As investigations into her financial activities intensified, public calls for accountability grew louder, with citizens demanding transparency and answers about how public funds had been diverted for private use instead of addressing the town's pressing needs. Henyard's political future now hung in the balance, with legal consequences looming over her. Her fall from grace had been swift and dramatic, leaving her reputation in tatters. Once celebrated as a trailblazer and a symbol of hope for the town, she was now seen as a cautionary tale of how unchecked power can easily lead to abuse. Her downfall not only tarnished the office of mayor but also dealt a blow to the town's morale as residents struggled to cope with the fallout of her actions. Dalton was left with a fractured community, bitterly divided by the events of the past few years, and the damage to the town's reputation may take years to repair. As her legal battles unfolded, Dalton remained in a state of limbo, unsure of what the future held. The town found itself at a critical crossroads. Henyard, who had once symbolized hope for change as the town's first black female mayor, now stood as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked leadership and the betrayal of public trust. Her fall from grace was a harsh lesson in the destructive power of corruption and the lack of oversight in public office. Despite overwhelming evidence of financial mismanagement, such as her lavish personal spending, including the $43,000 Amazon shopping spree and the $110,000 Four Seasons stay, Henyard remained defiant. Her refusal to cooperate with efforts to resolve Dalton's financial crisis, including vetoing measures to impose stricter financial controls and blocking the appointment of an independent auditor, only fueled public outrage. Town hall meetings became heated, protests erupted in the streets, and social media campaigns demanded her resignation. Instead of taking responsibility, Henyard portrayed herself as a misunderstood leader, accusing critics of singling her out. At one meeting, she bizarrely showed up with a golden microphone, and at another, a DJ allegedly played Rihanna's Better Have My Money, in what appeared to be an attempt to mock the crisis. These antics further alienated residents, deepening their frustration with her refusal to acknowledge the damage caused by her leadership. As Henyard's grip on power weakened amidst legal investigations and growing calls for reform, Dalton found itself at a crossroads. The frustration with Henyard reached a boiling point, and residents longed for a return to integrity and accountability in their leadership. Her dramatic fall from grace served as a sobering reminder of the importance of transparency and ethical conduct in public office, emphasizing that unchecked power can have devastating consequences for a community. Dalton now found itself at a critical juncture, its future uncertain but with an opportunity to rebuild based on the principles of accountability and responsible governance. Allegations against Henyard continued to intensify as Dalton spiraled deeper into a political and financial crisis. Even her former supporters turned on her, with trustees publicly expressing regret for their early backing, now seeing it as a mistake. The town, once hopeful for progress, now grappled with the wreckage of Henyard's tenure. Her strange behavior and refusal to address mounting accusations only deepened the community's frustration and undermined any remaining faith in her leadership. As legal troubles mounted and rumors swirled that Henyard may attempt to flee the town before facing legal repercussions, the FBI began closely tracking her whereabouts, signaling the urgency of the situation. The uncertainty surrounding Henyard's intentions added further chaos to Dalton, already struggling with financial instability, deteriorating public services, and a growing sense of dysfunction. Adding to the complexity, the indictment of Deputy Police Chief L.S. Lacey on charges of bankruptcy fraud further cast a shadow over Henyard's administration, fueling suspicions of widespread corruption. The connection between Lacey's charges and Henyard's troubled leadership raised further concerns about the state of the administration. In response to mounting pressure, Dalton's trustees took swift action to limit Henyard's influence, tightening financial controls and initiating an independent investigation into her financial dealings. However, Henyard fiercely opposed these efforts, blocking any attempts to bring in an independent auditor or allow external scrutiny of her administration. Her refusal to cooperate only worsened the crisis, deepening public mistrust and further undermining confidence in her ability to govern. With Dalton's future hanging in the balance, the town continued to struggle under the weight of Henyard's mismanagement. Her obstinate defiance and obstructionism paralyzed local government, preventing any efforts to stabilize the town's financial situation. The residents of Dalton were left to wonder whether Henyard would continue to cling to power or attempt to evade accountability altogether, adding another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile situation. As the FBI investigation into Henyard intensified, residents of Dalton clung to the hope that justice would prevail. However, the uncertainty surrounding the investigation and the future of the town left Dalton in a state of limbo, grappling with the aftermath of Henyard's actions. The town was at a critical juncture, struggling with financial instability, a broken government, and the need for reform to rebuild trust and restore the community. The likelihood of Henyard's eventual removal from office grows, however the damage he has caused to Dalton's finances and political structure raises critical questions about whether the town can recover from this crisis. For now, Dalton remains in a state of flux with no clear resolution in sight. The town is caught between a deteriorating financial situation, mounting public unrest, and the looming specter of legal consequences for Henyard, all while the community anxiously awaits clarity on the future of their leadership and the future of their town. As the crisis unfolds, Dalton residents are left with little more than uncertainty, watching as the future of their town hangs in the balance, hoping that the ongoing investigation will finally lead to answers and some measure of accountability. Hope for progress in Dalton, Illinois has dwindled as Mayor Tiffany Henyard's leadership spirals into chaos. Once hailed as a beacon of change, Hen's tenure as a town's first African-American woman mayor elected in 2021 quickly became mired in scandal, accusations of financial misconduct and erratic behavior. What began as a hopeful and historic moment for the town, marked by promises of revitalization and effective governance, has devolved into a tale of mismanagement, broken promises, and a steadily growing public distrust. At the start of her administration, Hen's election was celebrated as a milestone for Dalton. Her platform focused on community-driven projects, economic revitalization, and addressing the town's long-standing issues. Her early popularity soared, and her administration was recognized for its progressive initiatives. However, within just 2 years, the cracks in her leadership became impossible to ignore. Allegations of financial misconduct, including extravagant personal spending and fiscal irresponsibility, engulfed her administration. The growing accusations were a stark contrast to the promises made during her campaign, and they only intensified as time went on. By 2022, reports began to surface detailing Henyard's reckless spending habits. Among the most shocking was a staggering $43,000 one-day Amazon shopping spree, an incident that raised eyebrows and further infuriated residents. Additionally, her reported use of first-class flights and stays at luxury hotels painted a picture of a mayor out of touch with the financial realities of the community she was supposed to serve. These actions were seen as a betrayal of the public trust, and they fueled suspicions about her priorities. Hen's behavior seemed to contradict the very principles of fiscal responsibility and public service that had initially endeared her to Dalton's residents. As allegations of financial misconduct mounted, Hen's response was a mixture of defiance and denial. She vetoed measures aimed at ensuring financial accountability, including the hiring of independent auditors to scrutinize her spending. This only deepened suspicions about her true intentions and led to growing frustration within the town. What began as a supportive base of voters slowly disintegrated, and even Hen's former allies on the board of trustees became some of her harshest critics. By this time, Dalton's government was in complete disarray. The town's infrastructure was deteriorating, its financial situation was worsening, and public trust was eroding rapidly. Town hall meetings devolved into confrontations with residents demanding accountability, and protests calling for Henyard's resignation grew louder. Social media campaigns calling for her removal gained traction, and anger and disillusionment spread throughout the community. Despite the overwhelming public pressure for her resignation, Henyard refused to step down further. alienating those who once supported her. To make matters worse, Hen's increasingly bizarre and erratic behavior at official meetings fueled ridicule and frustration. On several occasions she appeared at meetings with a golden microphone and allowed a DJ to play Rihanna's "Better Have My Money" gestures that mocked the gravity of the situation. These antics highlighted her inability or unwillingness to confront the ongoing crisis or take responsibility for her actions instead of uniting the community. These bizarre actions drove a deeper wedge between Henyard and the residents. She had sworn to serve as the town teat. On the edge of financial collapse and political chaos, the FBI launched an investigation into Hen's financial dealings. This only added pressure to an already dire situation. The investigation, along with the mounting public outcry, made it clear that Hannon's leadership was under intense scrutiny, yet she refused to cooperate with efforts to restore order or address the growing concerns about her actions. The town remained in a state of limbo, paralyzed by her defiance and inability of officials to enact necessary reforms. Henyard's refusal to acknowledge the severity of the situation or offer a clear plan for recovery further worsened the crisis. Public confidence in her leadership had evaporated, but she continued to cling to power. The more the situation unraveled, the more detached she seemed from the town's pressing issues, instead of working to repair the damage done to Dalton's financial and political health. She remained stubbornly committed to portraying herself as a misunderstood champion of the people. This behavior alienated even her staunchest supporters, as her grandiose rhetoric seemed increasingly out of touch with the needs of the community. Rumors about Hen's possible ties to Deputy Police Chief L.S. Lacey, who had been indicted for bankruptcy fraud, deepened concerns about the level of corruption within her administration. These connections raise troubling questions about the extent of the misconduct and corruption at the highest levels of Dalton's local government. The potential link between Lacey's charges and Henyard's troubled leadership only fueled suspicions that the town's woes were part of a much larger pattern of financial mismanagement and corruption. In response to the growing concerns, Dalton's trustees took swift action to limit Henyard influence. They implemented strict financial controls, revoked her access to local credit cards, and initiated partial inquiries into her financial dealings. However, Hen's persistent resistance to outside scrutiny and her continued blocking of attempts to introduce meaningful reforms created a paralyzing governance gridlock. This stalemate further exacerbated Dalton's financial woes, destabilizing essential services and pushing the town deeper into crisis. As Dalton's infrastructure continued to crumble and its financial situation worsened, residents began to fear that their hopes for revitalization under Hen's leadership were slipping away. Instead of a town on the rise, Dalton had become a symbol of mismanagement, with rising debt, a deteriorating infrastructure, and a complete breakdown of public trust. The situation suggested that the leadership may have been even more deeply involved in misconduct than previously believed. The mounting evidence of financial mismanagement and corruption caused Hen's former supporters to turn against her. They were frustrated by her refusal to address or even acknowledge the growing allegations, and the town became increasingly divided. Many residents and officials were desperate for justice as the investigation into her actions unfolded, there was widespread Uncertainty about whether Henyard would face the consequences of her alleged misconduct or if she would continue to avoid accountability. Henyard actions had left Dalton in a precarious position. Residents and officials were unsure whether the investigation would ultimately result in meaningful reform, or whether the town would remain trapped in the cycle of dysfunction and corruption. She had fueled what was once a vision of revitalization under Henyard's leadership had instead turned into a tragic tale of broken promises, unaddressed issues, and a future that seemed increasingly uncertain as the town struggled to recover from the damage done during Hen's tenure. There was a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment among the community. Many residents watched the ongoing investigation with hope, hoping it would bring the clarity and justice needed to restore accountability and stability to Dalton's leadership. However, the longer Henyard remained defiant, the more it seemed that the damage he had caused may be irreversible. The future of Dalton now hangs in the balance, and the residents are left wondering if the damage done to the town is reparable or if the community will endure even more hardship before this crisis reaches a resolution. Tiffany Henyard's time as mayor of Dalton has been mired by increased public mistrust and growing disillusionment. Once viewed as a promising leader capable of driving revitalization, her tenure quickly descended into accusations of corruption, reckless spending, and in a leadership style that prioritized personal indulgence over the needs of the community. Her administration has been rocked by allegations of excessive personal spending, questionable travel expenses, and a budgeting process shrouded in opacity, all of which alarmed both Dalton and Thornton Township trustees. These financial missteps have sparked heated confrontations with the town's officials, who have directly blamed Henyard for much of Dalton's financial instability. Complaints about her administration's financial irresponsibility have only intensified over time, and reports of dubious financial practices and extravagant spending habits have fueled rumors that Henyard, once seen as a transformative leader, was overtaken by the trappings of power and corruption. As Dalton's financial situation worsened and public trust continued to erode, Hen's initial promises of change and revitalization gave way to scandal, tarnishing what had once been a hopeful vision for the town's future. Her tenure, which had once been marked by potential transformation, became a symbol of lost opportunities, poor management, and a failure to live up to the expectations of the very people who voted her into office. Her response to the mounting unrest was a mixture of denial and defiance. She adamantly defended her actions and accused critics of undermining her efforts, but this refusal to acknowledge the gravity of the situation only deepened the divide between her and her allies. Former supporters were pushed away, while her opponents grew bolder in their calls for accountability. The growing discord within her administration, combined with the escalating public outrage, left her position increasingly precarious. Many residents now question how her time in office, which had begun with so much promise, could devolve into a scandalous and controversial legacy. What started as a hopeful period of progress had turned into a storm of accusations. Henyard's tenure now stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unaccountable leadership. Her fall from grace has shaken Dalton and Thornton Township to their core, leaving the town divided and residents fearful about what the future holds the fallout from her actions has yet to be fully resolved, and locals anxiously wonder whether justice will be served or if Henyard will continue to cling to power until the end of her term. For legacy now mired by controversy serves as a grim reminder of the consequences of neglecting public trust and the perils of unchecked leadership. As Dalton grapples with the aftermath of Henyard's administration, the town's future remains uncertain for now. Residents can only watch and wait, hoping for accountability and the restoration of order, but the road to recovery will likely be long, fraught with challenges, and never fully erased the damage done by her leadership.